Good morning. A little over 20 years ago, I began a journey that many of you have taken or are considering embarking upon. It began with a train, included a plane, and yes, ended with an automobile, a wacky taxi at that. My first off-campus experience began with the American Studies program in Washington, D.C., a city where for many years I'd presumed I'd eventually arrive as a student of politics. What I didn't realize is that I'd become part of a community of pretty amazing folks. And yes, there we are. We may have been victims of 80s fashion dictates, wearing acid-washed mom jeans before our time, but nonetheless, we were a pretty neat group of people, and they were a very neat group of people with whom to study politics. Like-minded followers of Christ, seeking ways to pursue justice, love mercy, and to do so with the powerful and the powerless. And in the 20 years since, these people became and remain my best friends as we journey through this world together and continue to spur each other on. Thankfully, on ASP, I was challenged to be expectant, open to new opportunities and worlds, and it helped nurture an existing desire in me to study Latin America in Latin America, as we just spent considerable time on the program studying U.S. foreign policy in Central America, trying to understand the nature of conflict that was tormenting that region in the 80s. So after my junior year, I returned home to my college, Biola, and like many good things do, this conviction, or God's sense of humor, upended my best laid plans. Instead of graduating early like my roommate, I took on another language, adding Spanish to French, another major, and another year of college to enable my participation in the Latin American Studies program. Thankfully, I had a great scholarship, an aid package that helped cover it. On the last of the Latin American Studies program, I was able to live with a gracious family in San Jose, lovely gente, people who were patient with my Spanish, French, English mezcla, which became progressively more comprehensible as Spanish. And while DC increased my exposure to some of the grinding poverty in our own country, in Central America, our time in Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Guatemala, I was exposed to the troubling whirl of wars, colonialism, neo-imperialism, and corrupt leadership in contributing to the horrors of global poverty. I was brought face to face with people who lived in garbage cities, hundreds of thousands of street children, police states. And as profoundly as the struggles, I came to know more of the beauty and wisdom of the region, places and people of such warmth, intensity, and with a love of music, good food, dance, art, and God, and with a generosity of spirit and a keen insight of others. And I knew that if possible, someday I wanted to return to the region that I fell in love with, to understand, study, and share it with others. So after San Jose and my graduation, I was able to return to DC to live in community with some of my fellow American Studies program alums, working for the Latin American Studies program within the Council for Christian Colleges and Universities, merging many of my passions, and informally continuing my study of politics, justice, and faith with my community. There I was mentored and encouraged to do more for God's kingdom. It was through that network that I met and married my husband, a fellow student of politics committed to the pursuit of justice. And eventually, I returned to the academy to study, of all things, Latin American politics, being blessed to be able to become a professor of Latin American politics and international affairs, focused on the hope of what is and what can be. Global education may not help determine where you live, who you marry, and what you do, but then again,